We often see a major shift in attitude in people who move out of their home countries in terms of how hard they work and how much they start to crave success. While there might be many psychological reasons why the hustle gets intense, I believe it may also have to do with survival instinct. We probably default to our fight or flight senses. Humans have been known to adapt to their surroundings. After all, it's survival of the fittest. That is why birds developed wings, frogs webbed feet, and I this accent. Separated from their natural habitat, and while the change in foliage and terrain might be minimal, the cultural and social changes hit hard. Where once they ravaged the land in packs, are now left alone to look for food and shelter. It may not be as dramatic as that. Technology helps. But you get the idea. The need to succeed might as well be the need to survive. The excessive saving for years might as well be preparing for a long winter. But make no mistake, we feel as well. We endure, and only then do we not fear the cold, long winter. I was scrolling through TikTok when I landed on a video of someone claiming bangan ka bharta with rice and curd as their comfort food. Soon after, I was surrounded by unpretentious, genuine, and wholesome content. I was in Tanya's big little world. While her journey as a content creator may have started recently, it's just the tip of the iceberg in her story of life. Tanya first landed in New Zealand 7 years ago in 2015 and has since become a permanent resident of the country while working in food tech and more recently switching over to supply chain management. All while exploring the great outdoors of New Zealand, sharing amazing recipes with the world, experiencing love and life. Her philosophies on life away from home, self-love, and age have definitely led me to few cathartic moments recently. Let's see what Tanya has to say about her experiences and motivations. Hi, Tanya. Welcome to What About PR. First of all, thanks a lot for taking out the time to thank you to join me today as we trace your migration story from the very first thought to well today, and what do you think your future is going to be. So to start, tell me a little bit about what you're currently up to, and then take us back to a time when you first thought about moving to New Zealand, or maybe the seed was planted, and let's go from there.
Absolutely. Well, it's my pleasure to be on this show and grateful to be talking to you today. So where did it all start and where am I now? So a very, very lengthy questions. I'll try to summarize it as
sure.
best as I can. My dad was traveling overseas before he settled down. So when I was very little, I would see pictures of him in America. He was in Washington, D.C. So I've grown up with this weird fascination about going overseas and experiencing that life. I remember my dad telling us stories about these massive pizzas they would get. And I'm from a really small town in India. So that's kind of the very core of, I think, how I got into thinking that there is a thing called going overseas.
Yeah. Whereabouts in India are you from?
I am from Udhampur, which is a district. Well, now it's a union territory. There have been some changes, but when I was there physically, it was a district in Jammu and Kashmir, very close to Jammu.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So that's where. So nobody from my hometown would usually think of going overseas, but my dad did it years ago, and I don't know how he went in that direction, but anyway, he's got definitely some role in me being here. Mm-hmm. Where am I now in life? I am just thriving, like I said to you before. Just working. I have a day job that I go to that I really enjoy. There are skills that I'm trying to learn. And then off work, I basically spend all my time or most of my time just in my creative adventures, creating recipes, creating content, and any other time that I have kind of goes into socializing because I do love hanging out with friends. And so just doing my thing and thriving.
Yeah. So just going back to Udhampur, to little Tanya, And you've obviously you've got like a shine in your eye, and you've seen your dad. That's pretty unusual, and to already obviously there's a clear fascination right there, but but it obviously happened somewhere 7 odd years ago, which is, I would imagine, 2014 and 15. So what was it that you traveled for to start with?
So I was actually studying in Chandigarh for a bit.
And this was bachelor's?
This was bachelor's, I did bachelor's of biotechnology there. And when I was there, I met up with someone I got into a relationship with, and this person actually moved to New Zealand. So New Zealand was not the only place I wanted to go. I had a fascination with like just going to like Disney World in America, because that's where my dad's pictures were from as a child. But then as I grew up, and then a few of my seniors had gone to like Australia, and like there's a trend like Australia, New Zealand, heaps of people go there after bachelor's. So I knew a few people who were going overseas to Australia, New Zealand, and that's kind of, it came into my radar. Then I started searching, and I was into food and stuff. So I was like, okay, where can I go to study? And food tech at Massey University in New Zealand is pretty prestigious, probably it's a heavy word. It's well known. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll go and try it there, and then go from there. So the person I was seeing had moved to New Zealand. I was into food, and Massey University was here. Lord of the Rings. So I was like, it wasn't that hard of a choice to make. So that's how I selected New Zealand.
Right.
Usually people go through like agents and stuff in India. I know there's like a huge market for it.
Yes.
But for me, it was more like researching myself, applying myself, and then just using agents to sort out like what visa things I need, what documents I need. So I did a fair bit of research on my own with some help from the person. I would call him my ex. Should we give him a name?
Let's go with Kabir. Kabir is good.
Kabir was here. So
Kabir had already been in New Zealand, obviously again for education, right? Yes.
So Kabir was here for maybe roughly a year and a half more than me, or slightly
more.
Oh,
right. Okay.
That's
a long time. So all this while you were still sort of in touch from India, from Chandigarh or Udhampur?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So it kind of happened, and again, like I wasn't sure exactly how long I was coming to New Zealand for, but I was super keen to just experience like overseas studying and just seeing what it is like to be not in India and somewhere like first world country. Just fascinations, I would say, pure fascinations. Like I just want to see what happens. And then I came. There was like few major factors.
Right. No, that's a big driver ever since I think the start of it. And so once you did, you had already obviously traveled outside of your hometown in India for studies, but this one's a big sort of jump. How did your family react? I mean, obviously your father had experienced it firsthand, which for most of us is not the case. And so that's got to be different. So I would love to know how was that?
To be honest, I don't think that actually changed how he would have reacted. He wasn't willing to send me, and I think a major part of it, and I think the major part of it was me being a girl and not a boy. Like straight up, that is the reality I've lived in, most of my life. So I'm not gonna shy away from it. So he's definitely super broad-minded compared to many men in the same, community. So when I came to him, I went to him and I said, hey, like on a serious note, when I went and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I remember him lying down on the bed, and he kind of like sat, and he looked dead straight into my eyes, and he said, you do realize you're never coming back, right? You're going for good. And I was like, of course not. I remember like just, rejecting whatever he said. I was like, of course I'm going to come back. he said, "Bacha, you're never coming back." And I was like, "Of course I am. That's it." He's definitely one of my biggest supporters. He's been that person for me. He had so much faith in me to, like, I remember one of my uncles saying, "Oh, how can you send a girl? Like, how can you do this? Like, it's not right to send her alone." Anyway, but my dad knew someone whose son was in Auckland. And I think that was one of the things that kind of made my dad feel easy about, sending me off. So he contacted his friend's son and made sure he can pick me up from the airport. I think he wanted to make sure I arrived there safe. I think it wasn't a shock to them, but it was something when I was serious. They were like, "Are you sure about this? It's a big life change." And my mom didn't want me to do this, and but she accepted it eventually, and all my family probably they will listen to this and go, "We don't know about that," but I think most of the people thought that I will go study and come back. Like it wouldn't come to it, like anything. But my main priorities in my life is my mom and dad, and they supported me, so that's how I'm here.
Awesome. So you already mentioned how there was someone from your father's sort of friend circle. But so I mean, from that, obviously, so now I know who picked you up at the airport. But post that point, you obviously had your degree to sort of hinge onto and build your life around it. There's always something you need. But other than that, what's that one thing that sort of kept you engaged and supported in your at least initial years? Now we know there's Kabir, so that's that. Right?
Actually, no.
But given he's an ex, I would say no. Yeah. Because if that would have been the case, things would have been different, right? Right.
Hey, I didn't say it, you said it. So, I mean, yes, like thinking of me doing everything by myself, knowing nothing, and having that support there definitely makes a difference. But if I have to say one thing that kept me going was purely not being a narcissist myself. I knew I made that choice. I kept reminding me of how much money it had costed me to just sign up for this. And it was beyond something I can just waste. I'm not that person. I felt super responsible for the decision I had made. So it's literally just me. Like nobody was forcing me. I know for sure if I had been talking to my family and if I had said, "Hey, I can't do this," they would be like, "Just come home." They wouldn't have cared about the money, but who am I as a person was the sole reason I stayed back. So I just kept reminding myself, it's a lot of money involved. You can't just waste it. You have to make something good out of it.
So more than support, there's a bunch of pressure, which I can't. There's nothing more I relate to than that. It's a lot of pressure and
it's a lot of money.
Oh yes. And I like to call it the opportunity cost, is because we obviously pay a premium as internationals versus the people who are here. Right, so we did pay that extra bit, and it's only fair to feel that kind of pressure, which is supported by pressure. Awesome. Awesome. All right, that takes me to sort of the very end of this segment, which is in the very initial years. I would imagine in your blog you talk about the cultural shock you felt, and you mentioned how you were in Chandigarh, which I like to think is the launch pad for most people going international, is because that's just a city that's so influenced by any country abroad. But so what was like one aha moment when you got here and then got to go to New Zealand, and what was the very just not the best time in the first few years, not more recently, because obviously you've now gotten acclimatized, but go for it.
So yeah, like I've talked about the cultural shock. So when I came here, I think the best thing that happened to me was me studying a course that I actually was interested in.
Right.
I know a lot of people go overseas, and this is not a criticism, this is just an acknowledgement. A lot of people go overseas for the sake of it, and that usually does not work. And if it does, there's a lot of struggle in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
I came to New Zealand to do what I thought I would really enjoy. Mm-hmm. So first step was that, right? So when I came here, I met up. It was obviously hard to make friends because I'm already going through all these shocks, like cultural shocks, like just like the lifestyle is different, everything's different. But I made a group of friends, all foodies like me, and I think that was the best thing that could have happened to me. Mm-hmm. The best thing. Still, I'm friends with most of them, which has been like the best part about New Zealand, just the people for me. Yeah. So I got into a friend circle. Everyone was super supportive, super nice, and the cultural diversity was like crazy. Like one of my friends, Korean Kiwi, one's like Filipino Kiwi, one friend is from like Africa, one, like it's like a good mix of people there. So the conversations were quite, fun. So we would go and explore food. So that was like probably the best part, getting into that friend group and making that connection with people on the thing you love was the best part. The stressful part for me was money. And I think you can probably relate. I remember I've had like really difficult stories around flatting. That's why I wrote a blog about flatting as well. Yeah. Had some really nightmare experiences. And one of them was me not understanding how the rent works. I assumed that your rent includes food for whatever reason. I assumed that. I learned the hard way it doesn't. Because for me, to get my head around like the cost of just living for a week was insane. Like coming from India. So nobody really told me about that. That's why I wrote in my blog as well. It's a lot of money you're paying for rent. So, be aware. So money would be like the living cost was stressful. I remember looking for jobs as soon as I arrived because when I realized in a couple of weeks, oh my God, this is the money I pay. And I remember calling my family saying, I actually ran out of money. So can you please send? And there's, it's so expensive to get money from back home. So the money and the stress that came from it was no fun.
Right. I would definitely imagine that's the case. And just first of all, the fact that, you mentioned that you came to actually study, or rather came to a course that it's just definitely, again, it's just, I couldn't relate more to that. It's just most of the people that I've seen. The one thing that I hear the most is Napiarni.
Exactly.
So essentially, that's what people base their selections on. All right, moving on to the one thing that got you there, which is Kabir, and obviously we now know that that's not worked out quite well. I believe it's for the best. We've all had.
I would definitely like to highlight that even if that wasn't the case, I would have still gone overseas. May or may not have been New Zealand. That person, Kabir, was probably one of the reasons. Of the reasons.
Yeah. So would you mind, and how long after you sort of landed was it, did that go on for? And just that.
It did go on for a few years.
A few years?
I think it is more to do with me than that person. I think I'm this committed person who signs up for things and does it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it could be not for the best. Very openly describing. It did go on for a few years because I was going through a lot of life changes, and there was that support that I think I don't have family here, so I think I needed that in that moment, even if that wasn't the best, or it didn't work out eventually for various reasons. But in that moment, in that timeline, I needed that. I needed that support, even if it wasn't all the time or it wasn't there every step of the way. And then eventually it didn't. So all together, including India plus New Zealand, I was with this person for about 8.5 years.
8.5 years. 8.5 years.
8.5 years.
Wow. That's something.
Committed, told you.
Oh yes, for sure. I'll give you that. And you said it right. Your social circle already shrinks the moment you sort of step out of that first sphere where you've born and spent most of your life, and then we move on to another city, probably in the same country, and that's where we build again, because we're still young. We still have our batteries charged, and and once you're sort of international, it's just, I think that's one thing that I miss the most is the circle. I've seen a lot of people. So I moved from Bangalore to Gurgaon after a couple of years of spending there, only because I didn't have enough energy in me to build another circle, build another life in the city. To go officially. Were you the one who parted ways?
Yes.
Yeah. No, because the amount of you owning up to it, definitely you were the one. So yeah.
But there were a few factors that led up to it. It wasn't like a sudden thing. It was a few things that kind of led up to it.
So now moving on, we've had a juicy bit, on to more serious things. You mentioned how people sort of pick up degrees and career paths solely on the basis of what's going to make them stay. You did something just entirely opposite to that, I would imagine. Went ahead, you did a degree that you basically loved and enjoyed, and we can see that through your content, by the way, already. This girl loves food, obviously. And then once you were sort of through, it's only obviously the brief information that I have is through the blog, but you sort of switched careers more recently. How did that go about? How did, and all this while, at what point were you sort of getting a PR as well, right? So after you got there, you might have been there for a couple of years. Was it as a food professional that you got a permanent residency and then switched, or was it before? Okay, yeah, so go on.
Yeah, so I came to New Zealand to study food technology. So I did a grad diploma majors in food technology. And trust me, I would have loved to do masters, but the money cost me to do that 1 year. Of course, I was like, no. Anyway, so I came here to study food technology, and then I was working with Massey University. I actually finished working there, and there was some job project work opening, and I applied and I got it. Massey actually tried to get me into masters, but because of the cost involved, they could only cover the fee for the course because it's so much. And the requirement was that I cannot work off. The demand was that I commit myself to the masters, but then I was like, well, I have to sustain myself. So I couldn't anyway. Yeah, but
that's an opportunity not many people get. That's actually huge.
But I couldn't do it because imagine your study is paid, but you cannot work for your living cost.
Yeah, it's almost as much as a study. It's just it doesn't make sense.
It's like I had the option to either ask home and I didn't want them to sell things and land just so I can do another study. So I decided not to. Then I kept working there, but it was obviously how you study and then you get a post-study visa. So I was on a post-study visa when I was working for Massey University. I was a research technologist there, working on new food products and making variants and stuff. Then I was like, okay, I still want to stay here. So let me just find a permanent job so I can have at least a longer work visa. And you probably know how that all works.
Yep.
So I started applying for full-time role, and I found a full-time food technologist role in Tauranga.
Okay.
And that's how I kind of moved from Auckland to Tauranga.
Yep.
And so I worked there as a food technologist for roughly slightly more than 3 years.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, definitely. But roughly about like 2 years into the role, I already knew I needed a more challenging role. So I started talking to my company. I have always been this open and honest person with everyone in my life. So I think it's always worked out. I don't know, whoever's listening, just give it a go. Most of the times it works.
Yeah.
So I vocalized what I was feeling. I said, either I get a senior food technologist title and get more responsibilities, or I want to try something new. Very openly. I was like, I like change. I love this, but I want more. But the company I was working for is not a massive company. It's a small company. So I only have so much growth in terms of like a food technologist. So the conversation started around what about other roles, because I'm a quick learner. So I knew I can do other things. And I've always been interested to understand the whole of the company, like how the entire operations work and not just the technical. So I knew I had done like 2.5 years of like, by this point I had done 2.5 years of food technologies. I'd done my research work 1.5 years. It's messy. So I was like, okay, I do enjoy it, but I want to try something new. So I started conversations with my company around what other opportunities are there. And I think then COVID hit as well, like when these conversations were happening.
All right. Around 2020-ish.
2020-ish. But these conversations were happening in the background. So I would say the last 8 to 9 months I was with my previous company in Tauranga. There were conversations, there were opportunities coming up. We were assessing it if it's something that I want to do or not. Again, I'm not someone who just do something for the sake of it. So I said no to some opportunities as well. Then my company, I think, was worried that I would leave. So they were like, okay, if you are really interested to do operations, there's a role in Hawke's Bay. So the company I work for in Hawke's Bay, they are the same parent company, but different company. So also food company, but completely different food.
All right. And so you're still in the same domain, just so to say.
Yes.
Okay.
So they said, okay, there is a role there, but it's absolutely different. The company is absolutely different. It's a different city. Are you interested? Now at this stage, Tauranga was my second city in New Zealand. I had just established my base. I just had established this friend circle. So I was like, oh gosh. But again, I was prioritizing my career more than my friend circle. I started this new role 14th of December. Not last year, but the year before.
The year before, 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
14 December is when I started. And I'm still in that role now.
Did you get your PR before moving to Hawke's Bay?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Forgot your question. So I think 1 year into my food tech role in Tauranga is when I applied for it.
Oh, and got it. Oh, wow. So that must have been, 3-4 years after you sort of rushed around?
Yeah. So I would say, about 2.5 years ago. I got it. I got my PR. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So that's sort of out of the way. And why I sort of give it a special mention, you changing career paths, is I've seen people, and I guess there's good reason to it as well. I've seen people continue to work in the same role for years and years on a go, and because I believe they've sort of come in to a new country, established themselves, and while most people were sort of focused on career and family, we were also focused on sorting out visas and setting up a social circle. Right. So there's like, if anybody else is just someone who's from there is doing 2 out of 4 or just 2 things, we're essentially doing 4 things at any given time. And I'm not even starting to sort of factor in the number of calls you go that go back home and the amount of time that takes up. So definitely that's a big change.
I was tired of applications. I honestly was over just applying. Okay, you change job or variation application. You do this. You extend your visa. I was tired of all that. I was like, I wanted to sort it out once and for all. And I think July is when I actually got my residence in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Must have been a relief.
It's such a relief. And my application was one of those applications that didn't happen immediately. It took a long time as well. So anyway, but I was just done with the applications, and I had a permanent role, and I could get, because it's a long-term short skill food technology. So I could apply. So I was like, might as well. I wasn't sure even then if I, forever wanted to be in New Zealand, but I thought I would rather just spend all this money and effort and just get it over with, and then keep thinking if I want to stay here or not.
Right.
So that was like I just getting fed up of this stress, the constant stress of like applying for applications.
Right. Moving on to something you started more recently, and I didn't have to scroll a lot, but I did. On your TikTok, I saw the first video was posted on August 2022. 2020. Sorry, 2020. Not
2020.
Which is not a long time ago, and it's obviously. I think you moved. You must have moved because you started the new job in Hawke's Bay on the 14th of December. You almost would. It would have been. You might have been in the thick of it, and before.
I think I posted my first video in August 2020, and then I moved in December, and then I think Hawke's Bay has been the main place where I've actually made content.
And a beautiful place at that. I've never been there, but I've seen it through obviously what you post. Yes. So what was the driver there? How did that happen?
So I have this funda, we call the word funda. I had this thing where when I started publicly posting these things, my idea of doing this wasn't what should I post so people watch. My funda was, even if you watch my first TikTok, it's like me going up the mount, which was like my almost every alternate day activity. It was just what I would do on a regular day. Go there up on the weekends to watch sunrises and sunsets. So when I started posting it publicly, my idea was to just share a part of my life, because I thought there was so much beauty and so much to share. I felt overwhelmed, right? So what happened is, I've always been this person. So I used to share like a lot of recipes, a lot of like, my travels on my personal Instagram. So I would like share. And I got to a point where people started asking me for recipes, and I would be so lazy. I was like, now I have to write recipes, and I would like write it, and I was like, so much work. I think one day it just clicked. I think lockdown had a role to play in this. So I wasn't into posting anything publicly. I think I started my Tania's Big Little World in 2019 because I had like major travel plans that year. So I started that to post my travel pictures, but then COVID happened. And COVID, I think for everyone, it was like a huge up and down and, emotional roller coaster and all that. So when that kind of finished, I was a changed person after the first lockdown. And I was like, okay, if few people in my life, most of the people in my life are asking me for recipes, asking me to share more, I'll see if maybe there's more people who can relate to what I'm sharing. So that was my trigger. And I used to think I was funny. I still think I'm funny. But I didn't have like much of a direction, but I was like, I'm just going to share this, whoever this person is, just going to share. So if you see my initial TikTok, sometimes I go, what was I doing? But I don't delete it. It's me. In 2020.
Cringe is the part of the journey. I swear.
It's a part of the journey.
So much. I can't even tell you. I cringe at myself basically every day. I'm gonna cringe while I'm editing this video right here. I can't tell you how much. But obviously you must feel more comfortable now, right? And
then after a point, people started commenting, do you have a blog? Do you have this? do you have a recipe page? And I was like, oh my God, I think it has to be done, because it started to bother me. And then that's how I kind of like made it more formal, and I thought, okay, maybe a website would be nice, because then I can like put my thoughts down and write them down, and even if someone doesn't have a TikTok or an Instagram, they can still go to my website and get to know me and what I'm up to.
Right. So and obviously Instagram sort of the social media of choice to start with, and then you moved on to TikTok. You obviously people have taken a liking to you.
So I will definitely tell you this little story. So like I said, I had this Instagram initially in 2009, end of 2019, I think, to post my travel journeys. Then COVID hit, so I deleted, you can deactivate an account. I had deactivated this account. And then when I went on TikTok, I got this flood of people finding me on Instagram, on my profile for my friends, and then they just flooded. And I was like, oh my God, who are these people? Why do they want to befriend me? I didn't really foresee what was coming my way. So I was annoyed, and I was like, okay, if I make a public profile and then I link it to my TikTok, then people can go. Trust me, I still get requests.
It still on your personal account.
So I reactivated my public account, because if you go back really down, I've posted some like Tonga River crossing and all that, right? Few travel pictures, and then I deactivated. So I reactivated, linked it to my TikTok, and then I was like, okay, now all the flood can go to this instead of my personal.
That was strategic, by the way. That is very strategic. Coming in your ops knowledge. All right, we're almost nearing the end of our conversation here, and this is my favorite question. And this is something that I started asking more recently when when you look inwards and you sort of try and understand what you're feeling, and if there's someone to share with it. So, is New Zealand a stop or a destination?
Yeah, I was looking forward to that question. And funny that you asked. Every time I've seen my journey in New Zealand, this is how I refer to people. I feel like I'm on a bus. And Auckland was my first stop. Tauranga was my second stop. Hawke's Bay is my third stop. And I think I'm still on the bus.
Alrighty. And is this an interstate bus or is this an international bus?
This bus can fly. It can go international.
It's a unicorn.
It's a unicorn bus. It's got rainbow on the side.
Oh, nice. All right. So that does answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely a stop. And I think I know myself so well. If this was a destination, I wouldn't refer this as a bus stop. So absolutely, I think this is not it, but it's definitely it for now.
Yeah, for now, for sure. Yeah, that's what stops are. It's good to know. And you also mentioned how, there are colleagues and probably friends from back home who are living normal lives. Not normal, but just usual, expected, conform, call it what you may, lives in India. And you obviously, you're forging your own path. That can be difficult, it can be different. But what do you see for yourself in the future? Obviously, you've got social media to pursue, recipes to bake, and just the works. But other than that, just in general in life, where do you see yourself going? It's not a 5-year question. It's just a generic question.
I think like anybody else, companionship is great. Like I do enjoy my own company, and like I said, I've been lucky enough to have these amazing friends around me, and I think they are a big reason why I could sustain myself in a foreign country with no family. But I think even I was doing a Q&A on Instagram, and someone asked me for New Year's resolution, and I had 3 things, and the last one was find a husband.
Okay.
Believe me, like everyone was like messaging me about it, and I was like, oh gosh, what have I done? But yeah, like because if in that post I've got, first one is to be more creative and not be conformed by just my day job, and just be more there, creating more and just being outside. Second one, what was the second one? Yeah, close to family and friends, because I think last year for me was a lot of self-reflection, doing my own thing. But this year I want to spend more time with friends, and I want to reach out to family more. And the third one is find a husband. So what I mean by that is, like, I would love to find a companion this year. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to. And not because I need it and I can't survive. It's more like I'm doing all these cool things, and I do all these crazy fun things. I make all this amazing food. I feel like it would be so much more fun to share that with someone. So that is something I'm looking forward to.
Right. No, that's good to know. And I would imagine the amount of pressure that's coming from back home to essentially settle down.
Yep. Hey, believe me when I say this. The guys sliding in my DMs put more pressure on me than my parents do.
Oh wow.
It's like, have you thought about your age?
Oh, okay. And if you, by the way, if you wouldn't have mentioned it in one of your videos, I wouldn't have guessed your age. I'm not going to say it, but I would not have guessed your age if it wasn't for one of those self-love videos. And that got me thinking. And then I went, so from there, from self-love and the age video, I went obviously straight to the self-care video, because obviously you're doing something right.
Hey, all I'm doing is I do spend a lot of time with myself, uncomfortable amount, like until I get to the core of why I'm feeling certain way.
All right, so I would like to close our session with with your favorite Lord of the Rings quote.
There's, I think it's the first line. I should have researched this before.
Yeah.
But the first line in Lord of the Rings, the lady says, "The world has changed. There's something in the water." And it's like a long sentence, but like just those few words.
That bit.
That I don't know why it stayed with me for all these
years.
I don't remember.
No, the water definitely has changed.
The world has changed. There's something in the water. And then she goes on to say other things, but those few lines.
Right. No, it falls perfectly with your bus analogy of traveling the world. Air changes, water has something new comes up, and
something has changed. Always.
That's
thanks
awesome
for this. I really enjoyed it.
Oh yes, it was a pleasure having you. And do you want to do a quick shout out for all your channels for the 12 listeners that we do have?
Yes, I do love all 12 of them. So I've got my TikTok, and my name Tania Mannotra is my handle, and I've got my Instagram, which is Tania's Big Little World. Like I said in the podcast, I started it as a travel place, but it's become everything now. So you see everything in there. So go follow. I am very active, and if you have any questions, you can reach out. And then I do have a website, and which is my name as well, www.taniamannotra.com. And I do read the emails you send me, and the messages you send me. So feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please consider subscribing wherever you get your podcast from. What About PR is available on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcast. I'm Kitu. Namaste.